Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and Tim. I've got Tim Delace here with me. He's my co-host of the podcast. This is a podcast where we get everything and anything in South African cricket, and we had a massive, massive Sunday in South African cricket. We had a World Cup final where there was the first ever South African team to represent South Africa in a World Cup final, men or women's in the senior category, and it didn't go well. But yeah, I've got Tim to discuss it here with me. Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I am very glad that you qualified your earlier statement by finishing off with the fact that it's senior category. People seem to have forgotten that Aidan Markram has won us a World Cup already.
We don't talk about children here. What children do?
No, but people don't get it right. You got it spot on. This is the first appearance of a senior team by South Africa. That's important. Need to get our facts right.
Yes, we do. We do. But Tim, today is just essentially us talking about the momentum Proteas. Yes, they did lose in the final to Australia, but I think we should start with that final because on my end, 156 to restrict Australia to 156 in a final, I'd have taken that. Ideally, they bowled better than that, and I think they should have tried to keep it around 140. But in essence, obviously with T20, there's that late acceleration that you get. However, it wasn't a situation of fine margins. It was just a situation of another team bowled better on a tired pitch that has seen so much cricket, and it was slow, it was low, it got worse when you batted second, and to a certain extent, even if they're in the semi-finals, and you looked at all the people who were all the teams that batted second lost. So I don't want to say it came down to the toss, but like I was very anxious at the toss, and I hoped Sune would win it, and she didn't. Well, she didn't call it. Meg did, and to a certain extent, that kind of did it. But 156 at halfway stage, you would say, yeah, we have a chance. And yeah, that's what I felt for half the thing. I thought the Proteas played well up until that innings break, and then post that, Australia took over and they showed us what they did. But how did you see that final?
Look, I agree with everything you said. I would have bitten their arm off to get 156 the total, to be asked to score that sort of total. And yes, the commentators at the time said 156 in a final, the extra pressure, it's, that extra sort of 10, 15 runs could be the difference. I still think, even with South Africa's slow start, it was gettable. I really felt, even with their slow start, which was even slower than their power play against England, this one was even slower. I still felt, even at the 10 over mark, although everybody, if you were making a bet, you would be putting your money on Australia because they've done it so many times. I just felt as if South Africa had a real chance to get that total. Australia were 3 or 4% off their best.
Yes.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that to make South Africa's performance seem bad. I think South Africa did as well as they could have in the situation. But I do think it's fair to say that the Australians' fielding and their bowling wasn't at their premium, if you like, which is why I felt right throughout, right until Chloe got out, I really felt South Africa had a chance. And while they had a chance, they could have made history. But I think they can be very, very proud of the performance as a whole. I think that is important because they've inspired a nation. I'm sure we will get into it, but just the fact that we had a sellout crowd for a women's cricket game is massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah, no, it was a great day. I enjoyed it as a spectator, just sitting there watching the cricket play, living every ball of that fight. And you, as you say, I think you kind of felt like even in the innings, it was like the final 10 overs where it was like, okay, we can't do this anymore. But we still had hope, even up until Chloe got out. And to a certain extent, that's what this team has done, right? They've put themselves into this team that can fight against the best in the world at any point in time. I was just disappointed in some people. I thought yesterday was the day where those that did not contribute throughout the tournament immensely were the ones who needed to come up. So, for instance, Marizan and Pune with the bat, but that was unfortunate. Um, yeah, it, you kind of felt like, yeah, I know Marizan took like 2 wickets yesterday, but um, the second wicket was off a bad ball. She has this tendency to bowl it short, and then you're like, what are you doing? Luckily, then, like the fielding, Chloe Trout, and that catch on the boundary. It was great. But I think from an Australia perspective, I watched the team show me that they've been to the final many times. They were locked in. They were, even though they weren't at their best, and that's a disappointing thing for me, was most of the times you need to be perfect to beat Australia. But yesterday they weren't perfect, and they knew, because I look at finals as this, right? Finals, things are going to go wrong, and the question with the final is how do you react when things do go wrong. In normal games, when things do go wrong, you kind of have a plan and everything else, but everything is heightened in the final. You end up panicking. Shubnam was shouting at everybody. There was a time where I think in her third over, she was getting hit for six down the ground twice, 2 shots down the ground. And the first time we went, we were like, but dude, you're bowling it full and fast. You should expect somebody down there. But she had a mid on up. And she was like shouting at everybody saying, I want mid on up. And I was like, what? Why? You know, you're not bowling like that, and you could see that there were moments like that. But with Australia, there was no panic. They were calm the entire way. You could sense that they were frustrated with the wickets that kept on falling regularly, so they couldn't get themselves to put themselves to like 170, 180, and all of that. And that was the reason why I'd say they weren't at their best, because normally when you have one batter like Beth Mooney carrying her bat throughout the entire innings, you should be able to put down 170 if you're Australia, but they couldn't because South Africa bowled well. And Ayabonga Kaka, that spell, just for 7 and change economy rate, no wickets, she was just underrated package. So with Mlaba and Chloe Tran, I thought they bowled really well. Mlaba managed to get, was it Healy or Perry, with a ball that just went straight on. I think it was Alyssa Healy or no, yeah, or
I think it was
somebody.
Hewley. I think it was Hewley.
Yeah, it
But
was Healy.
I'm
Yeah,
not, yeah.
um, yeah, and so I'm not disappointed. I'm just like sitting there going, I watched a team who's been to a final before play like they went in or were in the final before. Whereas I watched a team who at half time, or not half time, in the middle at the innings break, thought they had them. That was South Africa, right? We're all sitting there going, yeah, this is it. We've got them, right? In a normal day, if this is a normal game, we win that. But it's a final, and Australia was so good. I just don't get how everyone in Australia can bowl. Like they had like 8 bowlers,
They had eight
and
options. They said that at the halfway mark. They said, thing is, Australia have got 7 or 8 options.
and how Meg
And
Lanning, yeah,
they didn't bowl well in this tournament.
mm,
Australia's weakness in this tournament was their bowling. It wasn't their batting.
yes,
Because everybody in their batting has come off, and their fielding has been very good in general. Their bowling has been their weakness
mm,
outside of the top 2 or 3. So they've had those options, but this final is when it came off.
yeah.
Everybody bowled well, except for the no balls, which were I'm sure a bit of
Oh, they
annoyance,
were
but
great.
everybody bowled
Oh,
well.
we love the no balls. We loved the no balls. We were like, yes, give us ball. And then they didn't. But that's the sense of having 8 options, is that if someone's having a bad day or one bad over, you're not bowling again. And I didn't think Ash Gardner would be that bowler, the one that got us into trouble. I was like, okay, it's 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 Dibbly Dobbler's medium paces. She doesn't, do much with the ball, but she bowls it bang on straight. And Tasman struggled, Laura struggled, um,
She got
and
Cup.
yeah, Marzan Cup is someone we just need to talk about because that was, yeah. But another one I'd like to give a shout out to was Laura Wolfart. I thought she batted magnificently yesterday in the face of all the drama, all the run outs. Sune's run out was just odd. But Laura was just amazing. There's this 1-6 off the free hit where she put it onto Campground Road. And you're like, yes, girl, this is how you do it. This is how you know, become that next level batter. And then there's one straight 6 that she hit. Oh man, Laura. Back to the commentary box end. Well, it was Calvin Grove end. Yeah, so I thought she batted really well. Chloe Tryon did well. Just didn't work out for her. And that's the thing with Australia, right? When you take the pace, like they have the ability to bowl whatever they want to bowl. If pace is working, they go there. If spin's working, they go there. And yesterday, spin was working because on that pitch, if you take pace off, the South Africans would struggle. Yeah. So, what did you make of were there other individual performances that you were happy about?
I think the one that you have to say, not in terms of yesterday, you have to say Brits. And I know she'll be disappointed with the performance yesterday, but I just think overall, with everything that's gone on, to a large extent, not being a part of the side, not being a regular, if you like, I think she really made a name for herself. She really said, you know what, I actually am here to play. So not in terms of yesterday. I think we've nailed everybody in terms of yesterday, but I think in terms of the tournament, I think she's put her name forward as someone who deserves continued selection, if you like. She's got some stuff to work on. She can't just be 6 and out. She's got to work at being able to rotate the strike when she is bogged down like she was yesterday. She's got to have a plan B, but I'm sure she'll work on that.
Yeah, and that's the difference with the way Australia were batting, right? They weren't able to get a lot of boundaries, but they were able to do the ones and twos, get the ones, get the twos, let the strike rotate as much as possible, even though it was a hard batting day for them. They even tried to bring in Grace Harris a little bit earlier to try and see if she can't break the back of that target set, just to get a few boundaries, but that never worked out. And to a certain extent, that's the criticism I have. The only criticism I have with the momentum Proteas is that too many dot balls. You can't get stuck on an end for 3 balls in a row. And that to a certain extent is Tasman. And Sune's going through a very
Well,
rough patch.
it's also why Laura is not going to the women's IPL. Laura Wolford is a fantastic player, but there's a reason why she's not going to the IPL. Because she builds up those balls at the beginning. Yes, she can go, but what they want is they want explosiveness,
Yes.
and she doesn't have that at the moment. So it's those three, that axis of Brits, Sunil Lewis, Laura. They all need to work at better rotation of strike. They're good players, but that's something they definitely need to work on, particularly in this format. Not just this format, but particularly in this format.
Yeah, especially because you would have expected Sune to come in at 3, but Marzan came in at 3. And actually, let's talk about Marzan now. I thought this tournament wasn't her best. I think she's had better tournaments, and this one was probably will go down as probably one of her worst performances, ball and bat. I know she took wickets yesterday and was great, but she wasn't bowling well. Even in the semi-final, throughout the tournament, she just kept on bowling it short. I don't understand why. She couldn't find the block hole. She couldn't bowl it full and straight. It would come out as a half volley or even just slightly short, and it would sit up, and the batter would be able to access the square boundaries a lot. Similar to how I think she got Meg Lanning. Missed the length, ball pops up, Meg takes it to square leg. Luckily, that time she mistimed it, and we have probably one of the greatest catches in the history of South African cricket. That catch from Chloe Tryon on the boundary was unbelievable. Even with the first wicket she got of, I don't know who the Australian opener was. It was Beth Mooney and was it Gardner? I think so. Got the wicket of Ash Gardner.
I think Gardner came in at 3. I could be wrong, but I think Gardner came in at 3.
Yes. Or was it Healy? One of those. I don't know. Whoever opened. Yeah, that's Australia for you. And it was a mistimed pull, and it went to Sinala for the catch. It's that. It's you know it wasn't skill, and you know that she can give us the skill. You know. And this tournament she wasn't there. I know they batted at 3. We know that there were obviously troubles with Danae being dropped and everything else. And I kind of got a sense that she might just be like, guys, we as a Fanica Cup family, we're done with South Africa. This is it. But what did you make of Marizan's performance in this tournament and in the final specifically? Because I thought the whole pushing up to 3 was a masterstroke. We've seen her do it in other T20 tournaments around the world. She just didn't do it for South Africa.
Well, I will come back to the Darno situation because I think that definitely affected her performances. I don't think that's debatable. I think that's fact. The number 3s thing, they were saying at the beginning when she came in and when she started her innings, they were saying this is a smart move from South Africa. They want to get out of this rut because of the slow start. They want to get those quick runs. They want to get within touching distance of the total. So it made sense. And she was very clever in her early shot making. She was the one who was looking for the squad and the rotation. She was the one that was looking for 2s and 3s if she couldn't get the boundaries. She was the one that was keeping South Africa within touching distance of the total, which makes it so weird the way that the shot that she played to get out to Gardner. A cross-batted swipe, which was basically just forcing the issue.
Yeah.
The pace wasn't there, and it was a panic. It was, I need to get runs here. I need to get through that little gap on the leg side instead of just playing normal cricket shots, which she had been doing during her short innings. So that was a shame. But yes, I agree. I think it just wasn't clicking for her at all. I kept waiting for it to click. I understood the early tournaments. I understood the early games, the Darno thing affecting her. But I kept thinking, she's a professional. She knows what's at stake here. She's been doing this for a long time. It'll click. She'll get herself ridiculous, and it'll click, and we'll see the best of her with bat and ball. And it just never clicked. It never actually transpired. Even if you look at her social networking reactions. So, Darno went to the IPL, was sold to the IPL during the tournament. And she was tweeting about it. So in the back of her mind, that was on her mind. Her significant other, her worried about her future, worried about whether she's going to get, whether she's happy, not worrying about herself and where she is in her own space. I do think that definitely had a massive effect. Um, you know, even when it happened, when she was initially dropped, you saw the emotion through social media on Twitter. You could feel her pain, and that pain of not having Donna by her side, which has been with her on the national side for a long time now. Definitely, I think that can't be taken into a small thing. That is a massive thing, and it's a massive part of who she is as an individual. She's always about other people. She's always putting other
Yes.
people first. When you see the earlier games, she's putting her arms around Jafta and saying, Jafta, this is what I need you to do. Do this. Don't worry. Don't panic. You know, that sort of thing. She's always been doing that throughout the tournament, but she's not being able to put that on herself and say, listen, calm down. Just let's live within the moment. What's happened is happened. I need to now focus on my job, not your job, not my significant others. So that definitely, I think, had a part. And to a large extent, although we made the final, if we'd seen the best of Cup, we may well have been sitting here as world champions.
Yes.
Because she is that good.
With bat and ball. Because I always felt like, even watching Australia play India, like they lost 3 wickets in a row, but they still were fine. You know, they still managed to get to 162. And to a certain extent, in my head, the 160 mark was the one. It was, don't get over that. Keep it under that. You can try and get through. But you kind of felt that if there was a moment where South Africa needed somebody, it had to be coming from Cup, because, or least, because they hadn't necessarily given us much, but they were playing that leadership role from everybody, and you kind of wanted them to be the ones to elevate us to World Cup victory. But obviously, it wasn't to be. Who stood out for you in this tournament? Looking back on it, obviously we've had highs and lows, but who are the players that stood out for you?
I think, obviously, Laura, because Laura starts to start for me because the first 3 games, she looked awful. I thought, what on earth is going on here? This is, we've got a good side, but, and you and I said some months ago, we wondered if this side was going to one World Cup too many. And that was big on my mind in the group stages, particularly with Laura. I was thinking, okay, this is something not quite right here. Something not quite right. The team wasn't playing well. Nobody was clicking in anything. And all we heard about was Donovan Newkirk, Lizelle Lee, Mignon Dupree. They must all be there. It's all we heard about in terms of the international media. South Africa can't win it. And I started to believe that. We are shooting ourselves in the foot by leaving out 3 quality players for different reasons. And Laura was just not playing well at all. She wasn't in form. And then it came to that game. That must-win game against Bangladesh, was it?
Yes, yes,
Bangladesh?
yes. Because the bowlers, because obviously this tournament, you needed to beat New Zealand to keep yourselves in the tournament, but our bowlers bowled them out for like 60. And it wasn't easy enough. But Bangladesh was so scary.
And the fact that she was dropped, the fact that she was misstumped, she was dropped at least twice, that if I remember, misstumped. You know, she was given so many chances. But by the end of that innings, she made 50. She turned the corner.
Yes.
Because of
but
what
they were
quality...
batting very slowly. Remember, we were worried that they were just so slow.
They weren't going to get to the total. Never mind the wickets. Yeah.
Yes. And Tasman and Laura kind of like, okay, guys, let's keep ourselves in. Let's go. And I remember Danae saying, you want to get yourself, you want to, there's 2 ways you can do it. Attack your way there, or just like, take as much time as you can to get there, because when you do, you'll get there. And I thought that second one was not great. I was like, guys, no, this is like we're going to get smacked in the semi-final, and seemingly it was the innings that we needed for both of them to give us that that 100-run partnership in the semi-final, which is what got us home. um yeah. Oh, Laura, so many things I can say about her, but she really does need to work on that power game. She needs to start early. But to a certain extent, in her defense, she just keeps on finding the fielders, and that was yesterday. Um, Tasman struggled with the timing. Laura had the timing, just went straight to the fielders, and that's essentially Laura's game. It's just that you need to take the ones, take the twos when they give them to. I think for me, Aya stood up. Obviously, Shubnam was the number one wicket taker, and it's Shubnam, and we get that. And she's been so amazing, and we want to talk about it because I think Shubnam was a key part of the reason why we're in that final. She led the attack really well. She bowled with a lot of fire. She bowled the second fastest ball ever recorded in women's cricket, 128 kilometers per hour. Well, she holds number one, but she was really good. Top wicket taker. She really deserved it. Um, and who was it? I liked Mlaba. I thought she grew a lot in this tournament to be able to take the first over of the tournament and only go for 5 runs of the final and only go for 5 runs. Aya bowled really well. She didn't take a lot of wickets, but in those middle overs, she was just gold. Her and Nadine were just unbelievable. And to a certain extent, the great thing for us is that we've got a bowling attack that can travel the world going forward. I think the issue with us is just how do you line up the batting? But our bowlers were so good, and it's funny because Marizan didn't bowl well, and normally when Marizan doesn't bowl well, we don't win. This time we actually were winning games, so that was one of my things. Was like, oh, okay, cool. She's not doing well, but we're winning games.
Yeah. The other one is for me is Nadine de Klerk. Okay, his stats don't quite stack up to that, but I think we've got a player there. If I remember correctly, she's not actually a contracted player. She's part of
She
the
isn't. She lost the contract. Yeah.
high performance. So it's just below that sort of. Uh, Basically, you've got 2 years. You've got 2 years to make a name for yourself, and then we'll reassess. So that happened at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I think there's a player there. I think there's a player there, an all rounder with bat and ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, that catch, no, not catch, the wicket against England was going to be talked about a long time because if that wicket had not happened during the England semi-final, with a punch down to long on, we probably don't make the final. But I just think her attitude, her determination to take the ball in tough situations, I think there's a nucleus of a really quality all-rounder there. I think she has the ability to hit the ball, and I think she can. She's got a bit of pace to find, and I think she'll be a really good player in a couple of years.
But I think that's what you want from Nadine, right? It's the bowling is now sorted, so that's great. You now need to start working on the batting and being a Chloe-esque type of player in that lower middle order, right? Because like same thing with Annika Bosch, right? I feel she's batting too low, but also the power element of a game needs to be improved. And I think this is a great segue for us to go to what do they need to improve going forward, and it is about being able to be a capable T20 batter. You know, being someone in that lower middle order, you can use the power game, you can use the dot ball denial game, but we can't accumulate this many dot balls in T20 cricket. And I think it goes down to maybe us looking to play a more of a positive type of game and start working on that. And but to a certain extent, for me, bowling wise, I think they were great. I don't think there's anything they did to put a foot
No.
wrong. It's just the batting, and it's everybody contributing. Suneli's form is a worry for me. But also the other thing the other thing they need to improve is that they need to give Sune the captaincy now. It must be done. If Danae comes back into the team, she's no longer captain. We can't do this whole back and forth, will they, won't they thing. It doesn't work. But from a batting perspective, it's just getting all the batters to improve by 10%. If they all do that, we're fine. We'll be fine. We'll be competitive at the next T20 World Cup. And so
Yeah.
for me, it's that. It's one of those situations where you knew we weren't at the level of Australia, but Australia somehow came down to our level, and we then realized that they were at our level, but we just couldn't kill them off, which is weird, but sad.
Yeah.
And because to me, like I think
I,
that's the
I,
nature
I,
there. Yeah.
yeah. I also think we need to have a discussion about Laura and her batting position. I think we've seen enough from this World Cup that perhaps opening is not what she should be doing.
Okay.
I think she's better suited coming in at 3 or 4. I think that's potentially where she's better suited coming
But
in.
then who's going to open?
I get the whole. Well, that is an interesting conundrum. It's not an easy solutionable answer. I don't have the answer right at the tip of my tongue. It isn't there. But I do at the same time want to get the best out of Laura. Yes, she got those 350s in a row. Fantastic. I just think in this particular format, we cannot afford to be 25 of 6 overs. We cannot afford that. We need to have somebody.
Is Laura the problem? Is it not Tasman going down the order?
I also wonder. Obviously, Brits needs to work on the situation. So if Brits remains still at the point of impact and starts to play a little bit more like Lizelle Lee,
Yeah.
then there's less pressure on Laura. I get that. Then there will be less call for Laura to come down the order. But I do think we need to find somebody, maybe somebody from the SA-19. I tell you what, right now, we saw the 19 World Cup. There are a couple of girls there that I would be putting in the squad right now. Maybe not the 11, but I will be putting in the squad right now. That 15-year-old, I'll be putting in the squad right now.
Monet Lawrence.
That's how strongly I feel how her potential is. I would 100% be taking her with the squad, giving
And
her
as well.
and Messel, because
Yeah.
Jafta got too much criticism, I think, in this World Cup because she is a good keeper, but she needs pressure. She needs to be in a situation where to know that my place is not 100% secure. I'm going to play every game. That cannot be. She needs to be pushed in a situation like this. So Messi comes in as well. Say, listen, if you make a mistake, I'm walking in straight into the situation.
The only issue for me is that they're 16 years old, and both of them, Simone and Garabo, and it's really tough to bring teenagers into the side. Obviously, Shafali Verma worked, but I'm just.
If you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're good enough, you're good enough. This is where I think we've had a rebuild with the men. I think there needs to be some kind of rebuild for the women right now. Before Darnay, Cap, Brits, Ishmael, before they retire. Not when they retire. Before they retire, we need to bring in these 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20-year-olds. Just give them a taste and see what it's like before they retire, not when they retire. That's the important thing for me.
Look, I think the other thing is that we need to get an SA20 type of league. We need to get our ladies professionalized. You kind of like we made it here with a domestic season that has a handful of professional players who aren't Proteas, and everyone else is semi-pro.
Yeah,
Look
it
at what
doesn't
we
work.
can do
Yeah.
if we had per se an women's SA20 with some overseas players coming in to kind of bolster. And we can start with like the whole IPL thing with like 3 teams, and then we can expand it. But we need something like this. We really, really do, because you can see the skills, like from a bowling perspective, right? That Australian team have players who understand what they need to do to stop players from scoring runs. Ashley Gardner was just a master stroke, and it just worked. Wareham was good. Jess Jonathan was just like unbelievable. You couldn't play her, right? And so for me, it's that. But that experience comes from the fact that they're playing BBL. They're playing in the 100. They are gonna be in the women's IPL. We've only got a handful of players who go there. We can't be a team of the handful. We have to be a team where the entire 11 is fighting to play in these leagues around the world, but also holding their own in their home league, in like an SA20 league. So for me, that's the one thing that I think CSA need to do, is we need to do that. On top of that, Tim, and I think we're gonna now talk about like the huger impact, right? I was chatting to Simon, who's our fearless leader, yesterday. I was sitting with him and his daughter, and they were talking about at the Lions in Joburg about the influx of emails coming in from parents asking if their girls can join clubs and play cricket. And to a certain extent, the other thing is also some of the athletes from other sports thinking that there's a future in cricket. But you have to create that future. CSA need to make sure that, there's a pipeline, that there's a future for women in cricket so they can earn money and they don't have to worry like the Danaes, the Lizalis have worried about money over the years and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, and this will be my last point, I think yesterday was an inflection point. It kind of now it's like the seed that was planted, like we planted a seed yesterday that will reap in the next 5 years of just increased participation in this game, which increases the pool, increases the competitiveness. And then on top of that, we now know what it takes to win a World Cup. And we just need those learnings to pass through. And we're now going to get the women's team is going to get the recognition they need and the setups in order for them to get to a point where we can win a World Cup again. And we can't lose that. Can't lose this momentum.
We have got to a situation of 2005 in England. 2005, they give terrestrial television the Ashes. They win an Ashes. And then the authorities go, you know what? You know what the best thing to do is to take the cricket off terrestrial television and put it into people who can only afford satellite television. That is the answer. What South Africa has to do is have to realize that there was an opportunity here. This is not something that needs to be kicked down the can. And look, this is not just me. Sonia Luz said it at the press conference after the game. She said, we cannot do any more than make a final. With what we have, with the resources that we have, compared to England, compared to Australia, compared to India, we cannot achieve any more than we have done. We have done what is asked on the field. We have given everything. It is now up to the authorities to see that full crowds means women want to play the game. If women don't want to play the game, you don't have full crowds. It's simple. They won't turn up. It doesn't matter whether it's 10 rand or 1,000 rand a ticket. If they don't want to turn up, they don't turn up. They turned up. You've got a product. You've got to take advantage of it. You can't go, oh, but this doesn't work and that doesn't work. Make it. Yeah. Make it work. Where there's a will, there is a way. There is a way to make this a fantastic opportunity. They are wonderful players. We've seen the wonderful players that we've got at our fingertips here. They want to grow the game. They want to take the game
Yes.
to places that don't know it. We've had uh, we've had the SA under 19 women's coach on here twice. She has outlined the issues. The issues are very, very clear. You only need to speak to her. We've had Hilton on here. We've had Hilton again. He's explained the situation. This is the time to take it by the reins and say, right, we've got a product. We are going to make it marketable. We are going to do what SA20 did for the men. We are going to pump money in, market it, and we're going to give the women's players something which they deserve. Because they, over the last decade, they have outperformed in terms of what they have at their fingertips. In terms of when you compare that with the traditional top 3 or 4, they have outperformed in every single sector. So, without repeating myself, it's the ball is in Cricket South Africa's court. It's now up to them to make something of this, what has been a fantastic World Cup.
Yes, and it was a World Cup at home. And I think for me, that made it even better because the crowds were there. And there were people who were watching cricket for the first time or don't understand the game of cricket, but they came just to support the ladies, the Proteas women. And there's a lot of goodwill that has been generated for this team. And you can't lose that, as you say. You just can't mess that up. Like CSA, you really cannot. And one of the first things I think Graham Smith needs to do is similar to the IPL when they do the playoffs. In the days where we're not playing in that playoff week where the men are not playing, just throw in a 3-team tournament, with some of the players around the world, give them 1 million rand each, whatever it is, to play in that game, in that week, or even 500,000, whatever it is. And let's have a women's final, and maybe even before the final you can have a double header, or the day before you can have the final, and you can help push the game forward. Because my worry is not for the Marazans, it's not for the Lauras, even though she didn't make the IPL. It's for Tasman. It's for Laura Goodall, who's the backup batter in that side. Annery Dirksen, Anneke Bosch, to a certain extent, Nadine de Klerk, Nonkuleko Mlaba, Ayabonga Kaka. Those players need to play international competition. They need to grow. They need to be better. They need to compete against the best in the world, and they will shine. In this format. And T20 is a great format for people to get into the game, and you need to take care of them. All the superstars take care of themselves. Shubnam's now got IPL money, which is great, but everyone else does not, and they need to get that experience. And obviously, we were playing Test match cricket. They went to England last year and it was great, but from a personal development of all these players, they need to work on their skills at home. What a better way to create an environment like that? Instead of the Women's Super League, well, you can call it the Women's Super League, that happens with the top 60 players in the country or top 45. And sometimes the competition there is not that great anyway. Why not just have a 3-team, take 5 of the Proteas, some of the under 19, some of the players in the domestic setup, add a few internationals, and then, Bob's your uncle. But I love the love that they got. I think it was great. I think we're going to see the fruits of this in years to come if it's well watered. And yeah, Tim, it's been a great month. To think after the Sri Lanka loss, I just was deflated. But they managed to get themselves to the final, and they managed to compete in the final and not roll over and die. And for me, to Sine and everyone else, yeah, well done. Well done. We are so proud of you. And you made us dream again. You broke some sort of a curse that everyone, for all those who believe in curses and are superstitious, you broke the curse, but there's still work to be done. The other big question for me, Tim, is Hilton. Does he move on? Does he stay? I think he'll stay. But our golden generation got to a final. They didn't win it, but they managed to get to a final. Is this the end for Hilton and this group? Do we need a fresh pair of eyes?
I think this is a situation where somebody has taken the team as far as they can go. Somebody has done a fantastic job. As I said, we've had him on the podcast. Fantastic guy. Really engaging. But I do think potentially this is a situation where we need to move him sideways. In whatever role. I think he needs to stay within the system. Definitely. And I preferably with a woman because he's done good work. But I do think the actual squad does need a reboot of some kind. And I don't think getting a new coach would be the worst thing in the world. He's been there for 10 years now. He's been there, a long time. You don't want to outstay your welcome. You don't want to sour what wonderful work you've done. He's done fantastic work, and he's unearthed a lot of players in his time at the Proteas head coach. But I do think potentially it's an idea. Maybe he becomes director of cricket for the women's side, and they bring in a head coach to actually oversee the actual day-to-day. Something like that.
Yeah.
That's the way I would go if I'm thinking logically right now. I think it could go either way, but that's the way that I think I would go.
Yeah, no, the women's team does need a director. I think they would need a director of cricket, but we're up to Enoch to be gracious enough to let it go. But yeah, I think that's it. But the Momentum Proteas may have lost that final, but they won the hearts of South Africa. Like, even people who don't watch cricket were following the game. People were watching the game on their phones. People were watching their game in different places. They actually got a lot of old people, some pensioner age people to watch the game. It was weird. It was like, oh, why don't you do that? The men keep breaking our hearts all the time. So maybe there's a little bit of forgiveness for the women. But
I remember that video. I remember that video of that 93-year-old. I saw that.
I was like, but there were a lot more in the stadium as well. And you're like, oh, okay. I'd call it grandma.
Not just young.
Culturally, I'd call them grandma, right? Because of my culture. So it was really interesting. And they were like learning the game, asking questions. I was asked at halfway of the Australian innings, what total are we aiming for? I was like, probably 140. If we can get them there, then it was good. And they looked at me when we got to 150. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. There was another lady behind us who she can't see, or she can see, but she doesn't see well. And she just wanted us to tell her when Ayabonga was bowling. I was like, this is what we're here for, for the fans. The other thing is the kit. Guys, we need the kit. Please, CSA. Sell it yourselves at least. Do something. We don't have a Castori store in South Africa, and Sportsman's Warehouse doesn't want to sell the World Cup kit. So I don't understand why this kit is like so precious that only World Cup teams can wear them and the rest of us aren't allowed. So yeah, that's my only one rant for the day. But Tim, final words?
It's just to say that the Full Court podcast are hugely proud of the women at the performance at the World Cup. Honestly, I can't say how different it was to see them in the group stages to where we saw them in the semi-final and final. I mean, it was two different sides, and to be able to do that is hugely, hugely impressive. You've won us over, no doubt about it. You've won us over. We'll be watching your progress very, very closely, and you can be hugely proud of your achievements.
Yes, massively proud, not found, proud. Yeah, you can tell I'm tired. Like, it was a long night last night because I was still celebrating because we made the World Cup final. But that was my worry. When we lost to, when we beat England, I thought that was our moment in the spotlight. We got to the sun, and now we're going to be let down. It's going to be a letdown spot, and it normally happens when teams do that. Tim knows I love the NFL. Philadelphia made the Super Bowl. Nobody thought they'd make the Super Bowl. They were the best team in the tournament, in the league, and they played well for the first half. But in the second half, they got beaten by a team that's been to a Super Bowl multiple times. And it happens in sport all around. Yesterday, Manchester United beat Newcastle. Why? There's a culture of winning in Manchester United. They understand moments like this. They understand what finals are. They understand that there's anthems, there's Sia Kolisi, there's all these things. And in a final, it's not about keeping everything as it was. It's not about going through the motions. It's about being present and reacting to the present, because things will go wrong. The question is, how do you react when they do? And Australia, even putting up the 155, knew that, and they played that really well. And that's my only hope, is that the next time we get there, they are present and they can play cricket that is not as a reactive, but they can play like they've been there before, that they're not awed by the spotlight and everything else. And they didn't play like that, but they got beaten by a team that understands how to navigate spots like this. Australia won it in 2010, they won in 2012, they won in 2014. They didn't win in 2016, but they won in 2018, in 2020, and now they are 6-time champions in 2023. It's ridiculous. It's a hard team to beat. So don't feel bad by losing to probably the greatest ever team in the history of sports. Like Michael Jordan's Bulls got to 6. This team got to 6. The Patriots had like 7 titles in their dynasty. This team's probably going to win their 7th somewhere along the line anytime soon. That's where they are. The greatest team in world sport. And we came within like, was it 20 runs of that? Or in the teens?
I think it was less. I think it was sort of 14, 13.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, we came within touching distance. Touching distance.
And at halfway, I thought we're going to be world champions at the end of the day, but it wasn't to be. But thank you for the ride. Thank you for taking us through all the emotions in the world. And yeah, it's a bit of some podcast, but we're all happy. You took us to a World Cup final. That's all I wanted at the beginning of the month. I didn't think I'd get that. I thought I'd get Australia beating England again, but it worked out in the end. Thank you very much. And to everybody, we'll be back again, probably with a test match review on... Okay, the test match is going to end on Saturday, but I don't think it was going to go to day 5. Might go to day 4. So somewhere on Friday, there'll be a test match review. Outside of that, enjoy the test match that starts tomorrow with the men's team. Well done to Momentum Proteas. And goodbye, and lesale kakahiso.